In Watchers 1, a woman came forward to say she had seen fairies and described what they look like. That story was a Watchers first, and more information needed to be gathered. In 2013, LA and I were shown a creature at Jaime Maussan's studio that seemed to match the description of what Jane described in Watchers 1. Since Jaime hadn't had the creature thoroughly tested yet, he wasn't sure what it was and asked us to keep that story silent until he knew more. We kept our promise. Earlier this year at a dinner in Los Angeles, I asked Jaime if we could finally release the footage of this creature, and he agreed, if we would help with the research on finding out what it is.
Now I want your help.
And that's what we're going to do.
To do a scientific research. I don't want to tell anybody that this is the real thing or something extraordinary. And if we can do it through you, I'm willing to do it.
That started us on a quest to determine if the creature was real. We received some x-rays that were taken in Mexico and showed those to a veterinarian in Malibu. While he wasn't willing to come forward on camera, we were able to record LA's private interview with him, audio only, and posted that in Watchers 10. We determined through this initial look by a trained doctor that the white dots in the x-rays were probably birdshot. While at a speaking engagement, LA had two experienced hunters approach him, saying that the size of the pellets meant that it was number 7 birdshot. This was a big clue. It seemed to add to the validity that the creature must be real and was shot down.
We had the chance to make these x-rays, and when we did, we felt very comfortable that this creature was authentic.
Perhaps maybe somebody shot it with a BB gun and that's how it died. I don't know.
So you think these round things are metal?
They look like, yeah, they look like metal. If I had to guess, metal objects and round like that. You know, I've seen these before in animals, and you know, pretty clear BBs to me. But I suppose they could be a buckshot, you know, something like that. Yeah, shotgun, buckshot.
I want to thank L.A. Marzulli and Richard Shaw for their participation on this investigation. It was brought to me in July 2011 by Adair Marzana Rivera and his mother, Graciela Rivera Martinez. With all my people that saw this creature, consider it a very important discovery. When I came, they brought the creature again, and I was really surprised. I asked them to investigate this creature, to make testing about the DNA, and to take this creature to be photographed and to make x-rays. I kept the creature for 5 years until L.A. Marzulli and Richard Shaw came to my office, and I showed them this creature, and they got very excited. They took the creature to the United States, where the investigation was continued.
We've always stated that more testing needed to be done on the creature, and this is a result of a lot more testing that we did just recently.
It was now obvious that we needed to have the actual creature brought up from Mexico. The Agora Hills Animal Hospital agreed to examine the creature, but first they needed to take x-rays of a very sick dog.
Oh boy.
Looks pretty.
This is one of our main rescues.
Okay, so I guess for starters, we're gonna elevate it out and onto the x-ray table.
This is the first time the creature was going to be viewed in America. We hadn't seen it up close since 2013 in Mexico. Dr. Lobanov lifted it out and onto an examination tray.
What do you think for views. Try it like this first, and then.
Well,
see
I'll
if you
do
can
that,
get
and then
different
I
view.
would flip it this way for a VD, like that. Actually, you want to shoot that one first and put the left and right marker on this?
Yes.
Do you want to include this other extremity?
An arm had fallen off the creature while it was still in Mexico. It was then laid next to the creature for the x-ray.
Well, it looks like a shotgun blast or something like that. Got hit.
It's actually number 7 birdshot. We had
Yeah,
two
birdshot.
hunters look at this
Yeah.
and identify it as number 7 birdshot. And one of our objects today is to extract one of the birdshot so we can take it down to SEAL lab and run it under a scanning electron microscope and get an analysis of it to find out exactly where it was manufactured.
All right, so let's get all the X-rays done. We can
Right.
actually blow those up, rotate them,
Great.
and
Thank
take a
you.
closer
Terrific.
look.
Is this I can try and go lighter than that.
I think we
I've
can.
got
I think
3.
that's pretty good. I think we
Let's
can
take
adjust
a different
it.
angle of it. This is a good. This is the better one. The top one's
But
pretty dark.
the wings are coming towards us, so I can't really see. So I'm curious to see on the
Profile would be great.
the profile, the lateral view on that.
Doc, it seems like this area of opacity in this area matches up with opacities that the white areas on it.
Okay.
It's almost like these are like really strong calcifications.
Would the calcification of the white on the creature be from the actual birdshot coming through?
Right there, some right there. They match up with.
Did somebody pull a pellet out, or they just looked at it?
No, we were hoping you could do that.
Yeah, we're hoping to extract one of the
I mean,
pellets.
this looks like these, but
Yeah.
you can see this one externally, and it's what the white areas that are on the arm.
Is its neck broken?
Yeah, it looks like it is.
The spinal column's been separated from its head.
I just don't see the hip joints here for these. I guess, and it looks like that's the hip joint, but could just be a shattered pelvis too.
A shattered pelvis
Yeah,
from the birdshot.
yeah.
What are you gonna take?
And that little calcified nodule in there. I think
Okay. Might that be part of the birdshot?
Could be, or it could just be. Those could all just be calcified, like people get stones or liths. But that I think it's more likely birdshot with the fractures
Right.
and the fact that there's one way up here in the neck.
The doctor decided to remove a broken fragment of bone from the pelvis that may have some birdshot inside.
Wow. That's a great sample anyway.
Is that one of them?
Yeah.
This is a piece of bone. Looks like a piece of the pelvis bone.
Oh.
Looks like a piece of pelvic bone.
Yeah.
So the pelvis has been shattered then from the
Yeah.
birdshot.
Yeah. Okay, so there. That looks like there's a little metallic center to that.
So that's definitely birdshot.
Well, I'm not indefinite yet. Let me get it all the way
All
out
right.
as well.
Is there bone surrounding it?
Yes, this is.
So it's actually embedded in the pelvic.
It looks like maybe the wing of the ilium or the hip bone
Mm-hmm.
with something there. But
Wow.
Definitely metallic.
there
Yep.
it is right there. Put it in the light.
There it is. Looks like birdshot to me.
Yes.
Wow. There's our sample. Is there a
So
little
did you want
plastic?
this?
There
You
you go.
want this little piece of birdshot?
Everything,
Yeah.
absolutely. The birdshot in there.
If you did manage to get some bone, maybe we can do DNA on that.
Oh, this
In
is
a
bone.
separate container.
Yeah.
a separate container.
Yeah, exactly.
We're really interested in finding out the stinger, if there might be a venom sac or maybe even venom in the stinger left.
Okay, so what's peculiar is that he's deteriorated, but this.
Well, it's really coming
Well, you
apart.
got to be real careful. It's really just, I mean, right in here it's coming apart. Isn't that where the bird shot was too? Right in that area, right?
Yeah.
According to the X-ray.
Yeah.
So again, without putting words in your mouth, is it safe to say that the calcium, what these white spots are actually from the bird shot?
Yeah, they could be oxidizing.
Uh-huh.
That's what lead does when it gets oxidized.
So,
And you say there is one tooth left in it?
yeah, it looks like perhaps one tooth right there. See that tooth right there on the right? Either a premolar or a canine tooth.
Where, right there?
Yes.
Is it possible to extract that?
Yeah. Are you?
It's gonna come with the jaw, no, yeah, with the
We don't want to do that.
right?
I mean, this is hanging by a thread here. It's
I
this
know.
other limb. So
Maybe I don't look like Jaime, but
pulling a tooth, that's the question?
yeah, but if you put the tooth, it's gonna fall.
The jaw still moves.
The jaw.
Wow, look at that.
The jaw still moves.
See, like I say, it's
It's really fragile. I don't think there's enough DNA in one of those teeth to worry about.
Probably not.
If we have a bone fragment, that's a lot
The
better.
bone fragment is contaminated because it's been sitting in alcohol.
Right.
yeah. But deep in the bone, there may be something in there.
Yeah.
this one.
No, the other one.
Is it possible that when it was shot, it just blew the pelvic girdle completely apart, and that's why the X-rays are kind of, troubling? Not troubling, but
Well, it's kind of confusing. I don't know if it's because it's deteriorated, but it looks like it only has one cavity, like a coelomic cavity.
what does that mean? A coelomic?
Like with birds, they just have one cavity with all the organs.
Okay.
Versus other animals that have like a thorax, chest
Okay.
cavity,
All
and
right.
an abdominal cavity.
Okay.
We took this creature in different occasions to the University of Mexico. We took samples, and these samples were analyzed for the DNA. After many testings, we found that the creature had the DNA of a bird. And for that reason, the university said, this is not right, there is something wrong, this is contaminated, we cannot do any real research on this.
And because this is somewhat bird-like, because
But it's not bird-like because it has long. You can see up in the chest. There's a long, dried-up lung lobe and a heart.
is it possible to take the heart out, you think?
I mean, I can pluck it, and an interesting stinger-looking apparatus on the tail.
Mm-hmm. Is it
Scorpion,
like
right?
a scorpion to you, or
The
similar?
scorpion, I believe that would be reversed. And
Yeah, it curls or
it would be
something.
curling up
Right,
because, of course, they have a tail that stings.
right.
But
Extra nail.
I'm not sure what the purpose of that would
Hold
be.
the tree.
The doctor then went in to get the heart and lungs out of the creature.
Oh my gosh, you got it.
Looks like the heart and lungs there. That. Put it. You want to save it,
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
or should I just check it?
Look, nothing in nature that I'm aware of looks like this. This type of anatomy that I'm aware of. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if we can, look at this and the X-rays and see signs of, some kind of a hoax or a forger getting in there and doing it, then okay, we can declare it a hoax and all go home. But if it seems like it's real and that it's part of the creature, then now what?
Well, we have that on X-ray already, so
Okay.
we can examine it a little closer. You can't really see if something's been glued or sutured somehow in there because the suture material wouldn't show up. But I kind of doubt that. That looks.
How would you do it? Can we? Is it?
Can't imagine.
Do you have an X-ray though of when it's laying face down, so we can actually get the
where the wings are. Do we have a shot of that?
Yeah, we have that.
We have that, okay.
But the problem is you're looking through them at this
I
angle,
see.
so
gets-
if we spread them out, it
Then-
would be different, but they're going to break off, I'm
Yeah, I don't
afraid,
wanna
if
do
we
that.
mess with them. So the side view shows it already on the x-rays that we've got. At the ears, I don't know if the other ear, or the ear flap, whatever that is there.
Nice flap.
What has it? What animal, what possible animal could this be? I mean,
For a composite, you mean?
I don't know for a composite, but I mean, unless we're missing some creature that is already well known. I mean, it could be a bat, but it's missing the wings should be on the limb,
Right.
and
they're not.
Not at all.
And bats don't have these type of legs.
Doctors, what do you? How is the head on this creature different than a bat?
Bats, well, fruit bats anyway, they have teeth, a lot of full mouthful of teeth. They got ears. I don't know if that's the way they're going to look though.
Seeing the way this creature is put together with the wings in the back and the arms and the legs and the stinger, how would you suppose it would fly? Would it fly horizontally or would it fly upright?
Upright.
Upright? Dr. Barry, you concur with that?
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's really built for gliding or anything.
Okay. So it's going to be flying upright.
Yeah, like maybe short
Interestingly enough,
distances.
this is what we've heard from other people that have allegedly seen this. They said it was flying upright. So it's sort of interesting that we get a professional opinion based on the anatomical structure. It kind of weighs in and tells us that, okay, the witnesses are seeing something that's valid.
The face, how is
Face
the
is
face?
just unbelievable. Taking different creatures and putting them all together, and if we did that, what creature would this be, and what would the wings be? I mean, how would they create the composite, in your opinion? And we don't see signs of pins in the X-rays or things holding it together. I mean, it doesn't, except for the pelvic area, which I agree, it's very confusing. Everything looks anatomically correct. Am I overstating that, or?
Yeah, it looks pretty correct. I mean, let's see what I can find out about bat anatomy and see if there's anything on there. I mean, like I said, we don't see bats, but I think this looks like a bat-like claw. So,
Is it possible to count how many there are
yeah.
with a magnifying glass or something?
Well, since this one is
Yeah.
free, looks like there's 4 and a thumb. If I'm seeing that right.
Right. So we're about to take hair samples from the creature. Yeah. Is that okay, Javier?
Yes.
It's loose already.
The front appendages on a bat are not gonna have finished claws like this. They're set up with long bones or digits that support the wings.
Not
Directly like
totally
that,
vertical, but
a little bit
they'll
when they're like
tilt a
ready
little.
for landing, or they're
I've
like
seen
hovering
that.
over plants. They're almost.
The wings attach almost more like insect-like. Like insects have wings that aren't attached to their forearms. They're individual wings that are more scapular, like grasshopper or like a locust.
Ooh, like a locust.
We spent a little time looking at the hand of the creature under the microscope, and it had furry fingers, which was kind of interesting.
Our truth meter seems to be erupting in the other way. We're not sure yet.
Okay.
But doctor, point out what this, in your opinion, might be.
Well, this was.
And we didn't see this before when we took it out, did we?
This appears to be. That looks like wood, like a toothpick or a piece of wood. Here, it's hard, solid, and this is some sort of epoxy to reassemble. And this is from the right forearm. This is the left forearm, and it looks like there's another toothpick with a couple green spots on each end to form like a joint. So
Could that have been a repair, perhaps?
Who would, Jaime didn't do anything like that, right? So there's no repair.
Maybe before he might have been given to him that way.
well, that's one explanation.
We should test to see what that is.
This is easy. It should be easy to test. That's going to.
Can
I'm
we
pretty
bag
sure
that?
it's going to be wood.
Wow.
I mean, this is solid. I can't even break that really. I mean, I could if I really tried, but it's hard. Unlike
can
the
we
rest
bag
of
that?
the bone
Sure.
or anything else. And going back to the hips with the
Right.
it looks like on the X-ray some broken off stubs of the femur, and then these just planted below the pelvic girdle could indicate it's been manipulated.
But what would the legs have come from?
Well, these look bat-like based on the claws. They do seem a bit long, unless it was a lot bigger, proportionally a lot larger bat than this.
This is what we need to analyze
And then
before we do anything else. This if it comes out as glue or epoxy, then that lets us know exactly what we're looking at. Then it's some kind of a composite. It's hard to believe that it is a composite because it looks so stinking real. And how would someone manipulate this? But that's what it appears to be.
If they glued down all this fur and
Right.
stuff onto it,
Right.
it's without breaking it apart. We can't
can't
really
tell.
tell how these are jointed or not. Here's the argument against authenticity.
Okay.
This one and that one. They look identical.
These stubs in here, which don't look like bone, and which we later determined look like more like wood, like a
Move with
toothpick or
epoxy on the
something.
end or something.
Yeah, with something reconstructed. The other is what we saw at the beginning. Is this looks like the pelvis in here, and this looks like the actual femur, original femur. They're going outward
Okay.
instead of coming down like
Right.
it should be. And these are which we're surmising are reattached appendages.
Can I borrow the pen for a second? Notice the blob here, like this. Could that be the same type of a glue job, the epoxy coming into this? I mean, obviously, one way to tell that would be to yank the leg out and we'd be able to see if it was glued in there. But
Yeah, or they could have just matted it all down with
Okay.
some sort of glue, because we're being gentle not to mess up the tissues
Sure.
here. But these probably would just pluck off, and there's no hip socket there for this to fit in. This is the actual hip socket, I believe, is right here, and this is the femur sort of blasted out. We know that it was whatever this portion of the body was, one thing. But it looks like these may have been reattached. But proportionally, it's too long. The other thing is the stinger. If we look at go back to the actual body over here. Okay, let's go to the wings here. I don't know that you'd have really the proper musculature to support weight and flight on a mammal, which appears to be mostly with just attachments to the scapula like that. The other is, this is puzzling. What would be the purpose of this stinger pointing this way?
right.
It would you'd have to be in a pretty weird position
Really weird position.
to
right.
to effectively use a stinger. So I don't know if I'm believing that is very functional. The other is that we saw in the X-ray, the skull is detached, so it's possible even still that this was some other type of skull glued on there, but I don't want to manipulate it.
Right. Right.
So those are the arguments against that it's authentic.
So I'm now leaning towards hoax, big time. I think we were fooled.
It's a good one.
But it's a good one, and it's the whole point of the research is to figure out what we're looking at.
The ends of those parts, like Like right here.
I don't know. Some sort of. I'm thinking an epoxy of some sort.
Yeah, that's what I'm leaning towards too.
See this thing here?
Yes. That's not bone, is it?
No, that's the thing that looked inside there. Almost, it was hard. It was too solid for being bone that was in there. When we looked at it, it looked like the spinal cord. I didn't want to mess with it.
Right.
But this is maybe some sort of plastic or
Right.
something in
Some
there.
kind of armature.
That's what's holding it all together, column, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's what we saw in there that I didn't want to mess with. That looked like and it felt firm and hard, like
Right.
it was probably a synthetic.
And
something
that would once again. So now we're sort of deconstructing this thing, and we're figuring out how it was put together.
Yeah.
Which is great. At least we've figured out what we're looking at.
We still don't know what the head is, though. Unless it's a bat.
Well, the head might have been stuck on, although it could be blown
Yeah,
back.
but what
because
is the head?
Don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yes, I am disappointed because yes, I thought this was real. Not just me, everybody else.
The creature was now confirmed a hoax. The sticks of glue were determined to be wood, and there was an armature running through the creature. But what we still didn't know was, how do we answer the question of what mammals were used to create it? To do that, we needed a zoologist. And that meant we had to travel up the coast to Santa Barbara. Paul Collins is the curator of the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History, and he agreed to help with a $500 donation to the museum. He could look at our fake creature and tell us how it was constructed and possibly answer our questions on where the legs and the head came from.
Yeah, so what I wanted to speak to on each of these things is as you look at things to see where it looks like there's anomalies or changes in the way things are put together. It's like the pelvis is different than what you would expect on the pelvis of a bat. So you pull a bat pelvis out, and it's vertical, doesn't have these big wings, completely different. Here's a hind leg on a bat, and this is just one species of bat, and it varies according to the species that you look at on how long the leg can be.
Is there fur in
Yeah, there's fur all over this. And then, so as you look at a feature like this where you have the hand,
there it is right there.
There it is right there.
There it is.
You can see the hand. And so this is, in all likelihood, this is the tibia fibia on the
see the hand
hind
again, please?
So
it went so fast. I didn't have it.
Yeah, you can
there
lay
for a
these
second.
in, and you can kind of get the overall shape of what the hand looks like.
That's amazing, Paul.
This is a little bit smaller. This is a longer footed bat. It has a little bit longer foot, but that's a foot.
When the veterinarian first looked at the new x-rays, not these x-rays, the new x-rays, the first thing he did was state that the way the legs that come into the femurs come into the pelvic girdle were wrong. He knew that right off the bat, and he was perplexed by that. And then he sort of like, well, maybe the bird shot shattered because there's 3 remnants of the bird shot, and we actually extracted bird shot. We had a pellet. So he was thinking, well, maybe the bird shot shattered the pelvic girdle, and that's what I'm looking at. It was only until much later in the afternoon, when the skin had fallen off these upper arms, that we saw the wooden sticks and the glue blobs.
Yeah. Bat. This is bat. This is all bat. This is bat. This is bat. I hadn't seen that. All of these things that you see sticking out, those are bat. They're part of the wing. So as you look at these fingers on the wing of a bat, you'll be able, even in the X-rays, when you look at them, look at the condition of these individual bones as you. Let me see if I can layer this in the right way.
That's amazing.
If you layer this in, you can see the individual joints in each of the finger bones, and you can actually pick those up when you look at these in fine detail. And you can also see, take a look at that hook. On bats, they have a little hook, which is the first digit. It's clawed hook
there.
Right there. And so it's really prominent on this specimen where we have the hook out. You can see it. It's on the bend of the wing between the humerus and the radius and the ulna. And it actually shows up right here.
Right there.
Okay, so we know this is a bat wing. Let's look at each of these. So,
okay.
Awesome. If we take a limb like this, and we look at it, that looks to be, that's an intact limb. So that's a whole limb. And we're looking at claws that are very similar to a bat limb. Difference is we're dealing with different species than what I have a skeleton of, but this is the part of the foot that we're dealing with. It has these really elongated claws, and you can see it in the shape.
It's very similar.
Yeah. So if we put that here and that here, which would mean that this has got to be the tibia on a fairly long-legged bat. Big, pretty good sized bat. Same with this right here. Here's the tibia. Here's the hind foot, same kind of hind foot structure.
So they're just taking multiple tibias and
Tibia,
moving them around.
And then here's the femur.
Right.
The tail.
Yeah, the tail is, there's something going on with the tail. Because tails don't have a claw on them.
You think that could be like a real scorpion tail?
No.
Taken from something else and put on?
No, as you look at this, there's something funny right in this part of the joint.
Of course there is. Probably more glue.
Yeah, so I have a feeling this has been added on right here from the look of it.
How would, I mean, obviously a taxidermist has the ability to do this kind of stuff. I mean, I've seen jackalopes in museums, right?
Yeah. So again, here's another hind foot with a tibia. Right?
Right.
And you can see the shape of the claws are just like what we get on a bat hind foot. And you can see that something went on in here. They had this attached. This was attached to something else, maybe on this side in the past, or this one was attached on this side, and they put this glue in there to hold it together. And so, this is what you're saying is wood.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
so
you
that being the
can see
case,
that,
you can
right?
see what they did
Yes,
is they
right.
reassembled it, took some of the skin and pulled it over it. So
We have the other part as a sample. Remember?
Where,
We remove it.
did you bring the samples? No.
No, I haven't in the back.
So, to me, the leg looks
If you want to open that up,
real.
You can open that up to see how it's attached. Because that's what we're trying to, really.
the armature thing.
there's that plastic thing.
Yeah.
Is it plastic? Is that what
Yeah, it's plastic. You can see the plastic indentations on it. That's been
Oh my gosh, look at that. Oh my gosh.
So that was,
Can you pull that out so we can see the whole thing?
well, it depends on what they probably did
Yes.
is they used a piece of this plastic which you could probably heat up and bend.
Sure.
And they shoved it up behind the vertebral column, and it probably goes all the way up into the base of the cranium, and it provides structural support inside so that you can shape the shape of how this animal's oriented. So that
Amazing.
plastic's used to create that shape.
Like a movie animation model.
Yeah. So that was whoever modified this added that in order to provide structural shape and or an attachment point for the wing. And you can see here that this has been attached here, right here. There's a big gap underneath this. The fur doesn't come across evenly across the surface here. So these bat wings, the outer part of the bat wings, have been cut off and then reattached onto the back right there. Same thing on this side. See the difference in the coloration of the fur?
Yes.
Different pattern to the fur. So both of these wings have been attached onto the back of this carcass.
But we don't know as yet what the carcass is from.
It's all of this is bat.
Including the carcass?
I think
Including
so.
the torso?
So as you look at this, same thing. The ears have been attached. They've been cut off and attached.
No way.
In a separate spot. No, this is skin coming off the surface, but it looks like some kind of a plastic material that was used to construct the shape
there you
underneath.
Go. There you go. Wow.
So this has all been modified to appear differently.
Yeah. So.
But this is a very primate type head. Look at the raised areas above the orbits right here, and both eyes are very forward projecting. That's very typical when you look at primate, but these ears are glued on. These are not primate ears.
It's a jackalope.
Yeah.
It's totally.
Yeah. So
It
it's
took a lot of time.
it's been.
What are the ears from, do you think?
A bat?
I think they're from a bat. That's
you're
why I
not-
said I don't think this.
You're not sure whether that's a monkey or a bat head?
Oh no, I think it's. I think it's. I think you're dealing with monkey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Monkey head.
You know, like a small primate, but a juvenile, a newborn or an unborn juvenile.
Wow.
So I think you got a combination of a. Part of it is the carcass of a small baby primate.
I remember doing
And then
that
you
as
can
a
cut
junior
pieces and parts of that kind of
taxidermist,
skin, and you could
When I was
you can
12.
take pieces and parts and begin to glue them and layer them onto things, and I think that's what's been going on here. It's been homogenized from two or three different individual animals that form the what you're seeing here. It's not all from one individual animal.
So this is a squirrel monkey. This is the complete disarticulated skeleton.
To kind of cut down on that.
This is an animal that came from the Child's Estate Zoo, our local zoo, and we'll take animals like this and prepare them just into the skeletal portions, and we use it for comparative purposes, so we can match up the bones from that animal and figure out what different animals are comprising that.
The whole front of the face, it doesn't have all the folds of skin and protrusions that you would get on a bat. As you look at this ear, the other thing, this ear is not bat because it doesn't have a tragus.
Wow.
You know, all of these bats have that inner structure on the ear, which is a tragus, which is a separate flap of skin that sits on the inner part of the ear. So this is in all likelihood the ear pinnae to the critter that this main part of the carcass comes from.
Wow.
Which I'm thinking it's a newborn or a stillborn primate.
So, Paul, where would someone, let's say, creating this hoax, find the body of a monkey, a small primate like that?
Well, it was obvious this one was shot. So it's easy for people who have access to shotguns to shoot things. They can shoot squirrels to eat. In some cultures, they shoot monkeys to eat. And so going out in the jungle or into the natural environment, they could end up shooting a critter, and it drops down and you can get a carcass that way. If this is a stillborn or newborn critter, then it could have come from an animal that is common in the pet trade down in that part of North America. And those animals sometimes they get pregnant and they give birth, and you end up with newborn or stillborn carcasses of animals. So, I can see where they can pick things like that up. So here's the plastic. You can see it just sliding up. It's on the outside of the carcass, in between the skin and the actual body, the internal part of the body. So it just goes right back up in there, and it's glued. There's glue. All of this coloration here is glue. Right here, see this kind of clay-looking stuff? That's all glue. So all of this skin has been added onto this carcass. All of that skin.
Wow.
And people looking at it think it's the actual skin of the animal.
Sure.
But it's skin that's been taken off some other animal, cut and pieced and glued onto the surface of that skin carcass. They obviously had to test and try and figure out what pieces and parts and how to attach them to make them look real, and then what fur of which animals to use. And so I'm sure there was a lot of trial and error starting out to generate some of these kinds of critters. And then you have to go out and get them. So like the bats, you don't have pet bats. They had to go out and collect them in the wild.
And it's important to start a serious research related to these creatures.
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you so much for coming on the camera. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Some have criticized Watchers 10 for releasing the story about the fairy. As Ellie said at the end, we weren't done with the testing. Sometimes it takes further study, expense, and travel, especially if the topic seems unbelievable. But while others sit at home and criticize, we're actually doing the hard scientific research in an attempt to bring you the facts, whether or not they're popular. In this case, the ferry is another example of how Watchers sweats the details to bring you the truth.
We realized this armature was plastic and connected the pelvic area to the skull. Now, when we saw this, we weren't jumping up and down going, hooray! The wind were taken out of our sail. After we knew it was a hoax, we then went up to Santa Barbara, as you saw. We sat down with Paul Collins, who's a master zoologist. What we realized is that whoever put this thing together was a brilliant taxidermist. He fooled doctors, veterinarians, nurses, people who have looked at thousands of x-rays. The guy really knew what he was doing. But at Watchers, we take the risk. We go the extra mile to try to bring you the truth.